you knock it off right now, it's gone! Moshahidi with room, launches! Kaboom! From another time zone. This is comical, cartoonish, and downright ridiculous. Hey everybody, welcome back for Season 2, Episode 15 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Last week, the Rafael Devers trade, the Pacers making trades in the middle of the finals, didn't know you could do that. Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, making a very cool but very brief return. It was a variety, and if that's the spice of life for you, then you'll enjoy it. This week, I am finally able to give you the results and recap of the NBA Finals. Then we'll celebrate the offensive renaissance of a particular baseball position, and of course, there was another bombshell NBA trade, again, before we got through the finals. We start with the inevitable. It didn't play out exactly like I or anyone else probably thought, but after 58 years, the Oklahoma City Thunder have their first NBA championship in franchise history. It was tighter than pretty much anyone could have imagined, and it got all the way to Game 7. The Pacers were a 4 seed coming off of wins, though, over the Cavs and the Knicks, who most people would agree are objectively more talented. They pulled a concerning number of miracles, mostly having to do with Tyrese Halliburton in the fourth quarter. More on him in a little bit. They had a 2-1 lead after Game 3, having won a game each at home and on the road. They had a 22-point lead at the half of Game 6 and ran away with that game, winning it by 17. Game 7 became a movie all its own, with the first insanely dramatic beat to it being Halliburton's Achilles injury in the first quarter. He had scored 9 points in the first 7 minutes of that game, and he was moving around pretty well considering he had come in with the calf strain from earlier in the series. Then one wrong step on a drive, and you could just see the way his whole leg recoiled. It's like there was some sort of shockwave that rippled all the way from his knee to his ankle. He couldn't take another step, he got carried off, and it was evident that the Pacers were going to have to go the rest of the way in the biggest game in the history of their franchise without their leader and best player. Indy responded like crazy through the next 20-plus minutes, though. I can't recall seeing something like this in sports since probably I've ever been watching. They went into the half with a 1-point lead. The Thunder eventually broke out with what I believe was a 19-2 run to end the third quarter, and unsurprisingly, that did put the game away. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander claimed the lineal title. To borrow from boxing, he wrapped up his first Finals MVP to cap off one of the all-time great one-man shows. First player ever to win the scoring title, the regular season MVP, Conference Finals MVP, and Finals MVP in 1 year. The formula never changed for SGA from Game 1 of the regular season all the way down to the closeout in Game 7. Get to the cup and get to the line. 10 out of 10 from the line in Game 4 as part of a 35-point night. 13 out of 14 from the line in Game 5. 11 of 12 in the clinching game to seal it. And even when he had his worst shooting game at 8 of 27, he still had a huge impact in that Game 7. 87% from the line for the entire playoff run. He took and made more free throws than any other player in the playoffs overall, and especially in the fourth quarter, where it wasn't even close. He played the most minutes of anyone in the playoffs. He actually limited turnovers really well, which isn't talked about a lot, especially for superstars and for those who handle the ball, but he only had 2 games in the whole playoff run with 5 or more turnovers. One other performance in the series that I think really needs highlighting was Jalen Williams, the Thunder 2 guard in Game 5. The internet is calling this the J-Dub game, and I'm with it. A playoff career high 40 points on 14 out of 25 shooting, 9 of 12 from the line, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, only turned it over 1 time, a plus-minus of 14 in 35 minutes on the floor. He had been steadily chipping in with about 21 points a game in the regular season, and he gave them just that same kind of predictability in May and June. Plus, what a time to have a breakout and that kind of career high. There just aren't that many massively talented 23-year-olds that are okay with being the clear number 2 option by a lot and not always having the ball in their hands. Super impressed with J-Dub this series and this whole year. What went wrong with the losing team is always one of the questions people want to ask in the immediate aftermath. The answer is practically nothing in this case besides the Halliburton injury. Indy only had chances when they pulled some of the more crazy and dramatic comebacks that the league has ever seen. Halliburton was able to play 34 minutes in Game 5, but he never looked right after the first couple of minutes after he had clearly picked up that initial injury with the calf strain. He finished Game 5 without a made field goal and scored 4 points and tied his playoff career low. He also scored 4 in Game 4 of the East semis against the Cavs this year. The one execution issue Indiana had was turnovers. No one's going to expect a team that averages over 18 turnovers a game to win much of anything, really, let alone a championship. Andrew Nembhard and Miles Turner were some of the ones that were kind of trying to do too much and pick up the slack when Halliburton or Pascal Siakam were kind of in the scoring lulls. The Thunder defense was more about timely stops in the playoffs than it was completely dominating people until Game 7. I really loved that they started Game 7 with 2 legit 7-footers on the floor, Isaiah Hartenstein and, of course, Chet Holmgren. Chet blocked 5 shots in Game 7. OKC had a 14-point edge in paint points. And with that formula, they're left holding that first Larry O'Brien trophy. A loaded young core, the number 1 defensive team in the league, a reigning MVP who is just starting to approach his ceiling, and Alex Caruso is their oldest rostered player at 31 years old. If anyone in the league is going to start a dynasty and it's not going to be the Cavaliers, obviously we know how they fizzled out this year, they're still loaded, but I think the smart money says that it's going to be the Thunder. That's exactly what the sportsbooks are saying, as their odds opened up at plus 220 to repeat, by far making them the favorites. So ends the 2025 season, but you will hear more about it towards the end of the episode, unsurprising. Shohei Ohtani made his second start of the year on Sunday. I did not get to watch this one live either, I was working, but again, exactly like I said last week, it is Shohei Ohtani, so it's not at all hard to find compilations of every single pitch thrown. You just, enter that kind of thing in the YouTube search bar, Ohtani every pitch, Sunday, whatever. And he only threw 18 pitches, so this one is an even shorter video. I thought for sure the leash was going to be a little bit longer, but I think using him as just an opener this year is a totally valid strategy. It would be, again, different than the game has ever typically been managed to have one of your best starting pitcher options only plan to go a couple of innings, but if it prolongs his whole career as a pitcher, then go for it. The Dodgers are typically toward or on the cutting edge of a lot of things like this. Part of that is the many billion-dollar spending strategy, and that extends to their analytics and the front office. So what did Ohtani look like this time on Sunday? Better. A perfect inning with 2 strikeouts, 12 out of 18 pitches for strikes. He continued to use his sweeper the most of any pitch, and I wonder if that was a matchup decision or if he is kind of having a better feel with that than the other pitches so far. I am not a biomechanics person, so there's your disclaimer of the week, but I still find it kind of funny that a slider or the equivalent would feel better than a fastball on his arm, considering the Tommy John surgery, considering the supination you need to throw a good slider. I don't know. I guess it could be about even testing that elbow out that he had repaired. Anyway, he also threw 6 four-seam fastballs. Apparently, they're now calling his two-seamer a cutter on StatCast. I really could have sworn that it was typically called a sinker, but that's neither here nor there, and he mixed in a couple of splitters with a max velo of 99 on the four-seam. He faced 3 good lefties at the top of the Nats lineup, and he carved them all. He came off the mound and covered the bag on a ground out on the first pitch, and that was pretty athletic looking. He is as good as ever in every way because he also had another fantastic game at the plate. It is a phenomenon how well he hits on days that he also pitches. And I might try to keep a running tab on that for the rest of the season and analyze it a little bit further. He hit a home run, a 3-run triple, had 5 RBIs. He is going to win back-to-back NL MVPs and be the only player not named Barry Bonds to have 4 or more MVPs because he's pitching, and there is nothing we can do about it. Sticking with the MLB a little longer, I want to talk about 2 catchers that are putting the position on their backs. More specifically, the 2 best offensive catchers in the game, one of which is rapidly moving their way up the MVP leaderboards. Who is second to Aaron Judge in the American League MVP odds? Your first thought might be Tarik Skubal, and for what it's worth, Skubal is actually top 5 by most scorebooks. The Royals shortstop Bobby Witt, of course, he's a superstar in every way. He's supposed to be the face of the league for 10 years and is hot at the plate right now. Maybe it's him. Maybe it's Jose Ramirez. He's one of the most consistent players that's ever lived. Yet none of them have been as good or as productive as the Mariners catcher, Cal Raleigh. Let me tell you about Big Dumper, as many also know him. He is unironically on pace for over 60 home runs and is making people fall in love with the catcher position. It's not all about hitting home runs, but I did want to emphasize the value of having a great offensive player at the position and how much it can boost your lineup. The stats I can give you this week will only be current as of around Tuesday afternoon. As of that time, though, Cal Raleigh has 32 home runs, and he just hit 4 of them in a 3-game series against the Cubs. He has set a number of records. We'll start with how about the most home runs by a switch hitter before the All-Star break. He's going to continue to blow that out of the water, and the most home runs ever by a catcher before the All-Star break. You're doing something right when you break a record set by Johnny Bench. And he still has 19 games left if my count is correct when I looked at their schedule. He has a legitimate chance to put up a Mark McGwire or a Sammy Sosa type number. And even if he can't quite keep the same pace in the second half, which is pretty typical, he can get a little buffer and lock up at least 50 home runs pretty soon. Salvador Perez has the all-time record for home runs in a season by a catcher, which I swear I've mentioned on the show 3 or 4 times. Maybe it was the MLB Hall of Fame tier list or something. But yes, Perez hit 48 home runs back in 2021 with 121 RBIs to boot. Cal Raleigh is roughly second in RBIs in the league right now. Again, depending on when you're listening. But the single-season RBI record for a catcher might be a little bit more out of reach at 140, also held by Johnny Bench. The other catcher who is hitting prodigiously is the Dodgers' Will Smith. I had kept an eye on him and his stats for a while, and the Dodgers have, of course, been shoved down our throats on national TV for years now, but I'm now convinced that this one is also going to hold up, that he is going to really continue to stand out. He's hitting .328 and flirting with a 1,000 OPS. He's not nearly as much of a power hitter, which is totally fine, especially out of the catcher position. We don't typically expect it. He only has 9 home runs on the year, but he is second in the entire league in on-base percentage. Plus, if you like WAR, he's been worth 3.2 wins above replacement. And this has been his least valuable defensive season of his whole career. He's actually been worth a -5 fielding run value by Baseball Savant. They score him as one of the worst framers and the worst blockers in the league, and this is where it gets complicated. Those are 2 of the most valuable things a catcher can do, and despite that, he is still a top 20 most valuable player in the league. Cal Raleigh won a Gold Glove last year, but he's actually been worth negative WAR defensively, and also has below average blocking and caught stealing numbers, and yet is 5th in the league with 4.1 WAR. As much as I want to celebrate these 2 and how much they've been smoking the baseball, some could point out that their offensive improvements are actually at the cost of defensive performance. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit less defensive emphasis put on catchers. A little bit, right? Will Smith hits primarily 3rd and 4th. Cal Raleigh hits pretty much exclusively 3rd as far as I'm aware. The last catcher to win MVP was Buster Posey with the Giants in 2012. The last to do it in the American League was Joe Mauer in 2009 with the Twins. So my question this week, am I delusional, or does anyone else think that at least Cal Raleigh here has a very legitimate chance to unseat Aaron Judge and be the next to win MVP? I'm actually getting bored of how insane Judge is at this point, and I shouldn't be, but I really want everyone to have to say big dumper as much as possible because I want a catcher to win MVP. Let's have it. And I will be forced to circle back to the NBA and not let the offseason start quite yet. I cannot recall such a busy NBA Finals where so many things just happened during it, but I suppose it's probably in part because it went to Game 7. Early in the day on Sunday, June 22nd, the Phoenix Suns started to scrap everything they've built. They traded Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets. We know KD is on the market every single summer, but I really did think we were going to be able to get at least through the finals before anything big happened. The package. Kevin Durant to the Rockets, of course, for a couple of starters and a bunch of draft picks. Here we go. Dylan Brooks, who will mostly play the 3, and their 2-guard Jalen Green, who led them in scoring at 21 points a game. The draft picks, there are 6 of them, the 10th overall pick in the first round of the draft this year, and 5 second-round picks between now and 2032. Still crazy that you can trade draft picks that far out. Nonetheless, is a single player worth 2 other starters and 6 picks if they're not currently at an MVP level? I don't really think so. and Kevin Durant is not at that MVP level anymore per se, 17 years in, but this deal shows how much the entire league still respects him. You may recall that the Rockets were the 2 seed this year out of the East. You would never have known it just by looking up and down their roster, but seriously, they were really surprisingly good. They excelled defensively with the 4th best defensive rating and had some other sneaky good numbers. Now you add in one bona fide offensive superstar and the vision starts to come together. Kevin Durant has 17 years under his belt, like I said, and he is really still as good as ever in a lot of ways. Plus, he now won't have to share the ball with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, who are also pull-up jump shooters with Phoenix. Speaking of jump shooting, KD was the best in the entire league at doing so, again. He led all players in shooting percentage on jumpers and mid-range shots in general, 17 years in. It is tough to remember, especially for me, an NBA where Kevin Durant wasn't a part of it. You could call him the best mid-range shooter of all time, and I would be totally okay with it. He led the league in points scored per isolation possession. The Rockets were a really poor jump shooting team and a middle-of-the-pack ISO team. The more I dive into those kind of advanced numbers, the more I think this actually fills in all their gaps. Vegas thinks the same thing, too, because if you look at their championship odds, they just went to 2nd best after the Thunder. It was a huge shift. Yes, I think that's an overreaction. I do. And I would feel comfortable saying that the Cavaliers and Knicks are definitely better on paper. Even so, the annual Kevin Durant sweepstakes is a major shift to the NBA landscape. And again, why during the finals, I have no idea. But it was cool to have a little bit of distraction and not have to think too much about the Halliburton injury. And of course, I should briefly mention the 3 torn Achilles throughout the playoffs of 3 different stars, all wearing number 0. Of course, it was Dame Lillard, Jason Tatum, as well as Tyrese Halliburton, and they all sort of started with calf strains, something fishy, something in the water. You know, is it a full moon moment? I don't think it means much of anything, but people have at least noticed that pattern and pointed it out on the internet, so I thought I would mention it. For anyone that got to tune into that Strongman live stream from Saturday, hope you enjoyed it, because I really did. It was a ton of fun. I had one of the best front row seats of my entire life. I was sitting super close to the action. There are some absolute monsters, and the talent pool in strength sports just keeps getting better all the time with how much gym culture has taken off. A lot of it comes down to media, and even specifically to social media, which I'm glad that I get to be a small part of that. I linked that stream in the description of last episode as well as this one. You can search it yourself under @RawStrengthKZoo on YouTube. I didn't create the channel, and yes, I'm aware that the @ symbol at the beginning is definitely not optimizing its reach. It actually makes it harder to find the channel. That's why I liked direct links to videos or lives. We took a YouTube channel, though, from just being created with 0 subs to sitting somewhere around 700 views in one day. That was cool stuff. And that'll do it for Season 2, Episode 15. I had to rush this episode big time because as you're listening to this, I'll be in Syracuse. It's the 2nd and final immersion event of my master's program. The theme is sports communications, so I just always had this circled on my calendar as, I knew I was going to eat this up. And I'll report back on everything that I get to do and see next week. I'm going to leave my business cards around like a little breadcrumb trail and see where that gets me, because you never know if you don't try, guys. Check out all my socials, leave a like, comment, and share this episode and the show to all of your friends and family if you enjoyed it. Again, I will task you directly with that, but I appreciate it. This has been Season 2, Episode 15 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, no.
Oh, you knock it off right now. It's gone. Mo Shahidi with room launches. Kaboom! From another time zone. This is comical, cartoonish, and downright ridiculous.